What is up, everyone? Today, we are going to be playing a very special horror game brought to you by a vote that went out to my patrons on Patreon. Very cloak and dagger stuff. They're basically the Illuminati. The game that we're going to be playing today is Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and I say it's special because, in a sense, it kicked off something of a renaissance. It's an incredibly influential game, and I'll talk more about that shortly. But suffice it to say right now, I don't think it's the best horror game ever. It's certainly not my favorite, although it is quite good. What it deserves a lot of credit and recognition for, though, is for heralding the return of survival horror, and it was also a really big part in the meteoric rise of indie games over the last couple of years. It played a really big role in that. So a real quick disclaimer as we get started, I make my profile. My style, especially for horror game LPs, is not... It doesn't trend towards overblown reactions. I don't really play the reactions up that much. Plus, it's a game that I've played before, so it's been a couple of years, so it might still get me. But don't expect shrieking because a chair fell over or something like that. I don't really play up my reactions. I'm not playing to a character. If you came for that, that's not what you're gonna get. If you came to learn about this really cool horror game and why it's so influential, you will get that. This is also, as with any horror game LP, probably the most you'll hear me talk throughout the playthrough. So with that said, I'm gonna get things started here in just a second as we load up the beginning of the game, and I will shut up.
Don't forget, some things mustn't be forgotten. The shadow hunting me. I must hurry. My name is Daniel. I live in London at Mayfair. What have I done? This is crazy. Don't forget. Don't forget. I must stop him. Focus. My name is... I am Daniel.
Alright, so our main character is Daniel, and he has gasp amnesia. What a shocker that our main character has amnesia in Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And we come to on this dark and stormy night, lying in a heap on the floor of Castle Brennenburg. What we're doing here and how we got here is a mystery. One that's going to be resolved relatively quickly. What we're doing here, yeah, we're going to find that out pretty soon. And we get our first tinderbox right here, right off the bat. Mementos are pretty much just going to be our objectives. You also saw entries for diaries and notes and other things. We'll be finding plenty of those. And nothing to find back here. So it looks like we can just exit, but, of course, if you try to leave through the front door, too spooky for Daniel. Can't do that. So, deeper into the castle, we will go a-journeying. And we're finding more tinderboxes. Love me some tinderboxes. They're one of your primary collectible resources throughout the game, and they allow you to light up candles, torches, candelabras, sometimes unlit fireplaces, to provide you with a light source. Even right off the bat, like really early in the game, the sound design is pretty terrific. Horror games are like 50-60% sound design anyway, but it's especially good in Amnesia. This is a kind of a preview of what will happen when you lose your sanity. It's not a mechanic we've been formally introduced to just yet, but we'll see it in effect not too long from now. Here's something kind of unfortunate. If you watch my Machine for Pigs playthrough, yeah, that glitch didn't exist back in the Dark Descent, at least not that I've seen. Can't throw a chair and have it warp through walls in this one. That's too bad. Hear the constant whipping of wind outside. Really excellent. The Dark Descent has like one of the most perfect door creaking noises ever. Yeah, here we go. So I'm gonna turn the light on. When you're in the dark, you will constantly lose sanity. When you see supernatural or eerie, scary events, you will also lose sanity. And I'll go and show this off. So we have our tinderboxes, our oil, the journal, our sanity, and our health up here. So we have a couple of things going on. Those systems actually interact in really interesting ways. The tinderboxes, as you've seen, let you light things. The oil is for a lantern. We don't have yet. It provides a constant source of light while you have it out, but it drains your oil, so oil and tinderboxes make up your primary resources, collectible resources for the game. Sanity is your other quote-unquote resource. I hinted at... in the Machine for Pigs playthrough, which removed a lot of these mechanics, they interact with each other in really cool ways. And you have sanity effects going on when you get too low. Not quite Eternal Darkness levels of cool sanity effects, but still. Head is pounding, hands are shaking. Been in the dark too long. I try to ride the edge just because I'm a resource hog. So when you're in the darkness, you lose sanity. When you lose sanity and it dips too low, Daniel will collapse in a heap on the ground, and he'll do things like mutter loudly to himself. That muttering can attract nearby monsters. So you don't want your sanity to dip too low, or you'll get caught and killed. And we just picked up the lantern back there if you didn't see. But also, if you have the lights on, if you have your lantern out, for instance, that will also attract monsters. So sometimes you have to be in the dark, and you'll constantly be losing sanity, and you'll be hoping that you can get to a light source or you can whip your lantern out in time before you lose it completely and mutter to yourself and get its attention. And things are really, really tense when that happens. But even in this early portion of the game, before the monsters are around, you get all of these scripted, eerie events going on, things shaking, walls collapsing, doors flying shut and open, Daniel just randomly collapsing from the fear, in this goddamn amazing sound design and atmosphere. Horror games are like 60% atmosphere, or 60% sound design, 30% atmosphere.
19th of August, 1839. I wish I could ask how much you remember. I don't know if there will be anything left after I consume this drink. Don't be afraid, Daniel. I can't tell you why, but know this. I choose to forget. Try to find comfort and strength in that fact. There is a purpose. You are my final effort to put things right. God willing, the name Alexander of Brandenburg still invokes bitter anger in you. If not, this will sound horrible. Go to the inner sanctum, find Alexander, and kill him. His body is old and weak, and yours, young and strong. He will be no match for you. One last thing. A shadow is following you. It's a living nightmare, breaking down reality. I have tried everything, and there is no way to fight back. You need to escape it as long as you can. Redeem us both, Daniel. Descend into the darkness where Alexander waits and murder him. Your former self, Daniel.
Okay, so we have our goal. We're here in Castle Brennenburg to kill the Baron of the castle, Alexander. Great. And the interesting thing there is that Daniel made himself purposefully forget because of something he saw that was so horrific he wanted to erase it from his memory. Do I need to quote the opening paragraph of Call of Cthulhu again? We shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. Yeah, that's the territory we're getting into. And yeah, Frictional, they are big H.P. Lovecraft fans.
Alexander, is it inside the castle?
In a manner of speaking. Come, bring the lamp. You've been to the refinery, have you not?
I don't believe I have. Is it connected to the... what did you call it?
The inner sanctum. My most precious chamber, Daniel. And it lies well beyond the refinery. In fact, it lies beneath the very stone of Brennenburg.
Oh yeah, that sounds terrific. Let's go underneath this horrible, creepy castle. It's tough and pliant. Can't be torn by hands or tools. Okay, so we have terrible, demonic-looking, red, organic, fleshy goo blocking the way. So instead, we'll come back this way and get oil and tinderboxes. Ah, more oil. I knew that was here. Knew it. I didn't remember, but I knew. And, of course, you try to exit. Red, organic, fleshy shit bars you away. And since I just witnessed something horrible happening, it drained my sanity a little bit. I should also say that completing puzzles will replenish your sanity. And yeah, that's it. So we have the wine cellar and the lab back there. I'm not going to either of them. Ooh, that kind of got me for a second. I forgot. The lady screams when you go up the steps from the lab. That's clearly barred. Of course it won't budge. It's barricaded. Oh, tinderbox behind the rubble. The wine cellar is locked, and I don't want to head to the lab yet. I want to head over here to, I think this is coming up the archive. Can I light this candelabra? No, I can't. Or chandelier. What's the difference between candles placed on a chandelier and a candelabra? Door slammed shut behind him. Ah, leaving London behind. Okay, and we've come to the archives. Let's see, we have rare books room with the door torn clean off the hinges and catalogs. I think I'm going to come down through here first. The level design in The Dark Descent, if you watched the Machine for Pigs playthrough, you notice that... What does this one say? Hold on. Hereby offer my full attention and services to Alexander, Baron of Brennenburg. Contract will reign for 3 years. Prussian Royal Court, Order of the Black Eagle. Wilhelm, House of Garrick. Right. The Order of the Black Eagle will become more important as we progress. Oh, also one little control quirk here. The way the controls work is by clicking and dragging, gesturing to open up objects, so like sliding the mouse back to open up drawers, sliding it back and forward to slowly open doors, rotating it to turn valves, stuff like that. Right. Machine for Pigs, you might have noticed, was pretty linear. This is one of the advantages that the Dark Descent has over it, in that it has pretty good level design, and it's rather open.
16th of May, 1839. The unflinching African sun has continued to plague our expedition, making it impossible to dig until dusk. How Professor Herbert managed to find the location in these vast plains of nothingness remains a mystery to me. When I asked him about the tomb again, he told me about the legend of Tin Hanan, the mother of us all. An interesting story in its own right, but I can't help feeling there's more. Later that evening, we uncovered a passage beneath the dunes leading to a sand-covered stone structure. The professor was confident it was the tomb we sought, and ordered the others to clear the way late into the dark, cold night. Tomorrow, I shall lead the men into the ancient structure, hoping to reach the burial chamber. No matter what the professor is keeping from me, the dig should yield something interesting to take back to London and the British Museum.
Okay, so we've now found a regular note and a page from Daniel's diary, talking about this doomed expedition. Daniel will voice his own diary entries. The rest of them, you have to read for yourself. Mostly just going to be summarizing the notes instead of reading them out, because they're not quite as flowery and well written in that sense as the Machine for Pigs notes, and they're also quite long. So I'm gonna opt to just summarize most of them instead. I really like the flowery language of the Machine for Pigs notes, though. On the other hand, the trade-off is that you get way, way better level design, which actually facilitates atmosphere building and putting you in uncomfortable positions of exploring the darkness and the thing that brings you terror. Like, you actually have to probe around in this area where you're profoundly uncomfortable, which is a pretty steep trade-off to make. Plus, the mechanics that are missing from a Machine for Pigs, which add a pretty nice little layer of depth to the game. I will say, to a Machine for Pigs' credit, I like the imagery in a Machine for Pigs a lot better. That's something I talked about a lot during that LP. I really like the imagery presented in a Machine for Pigs compared to this one. And the story. They both have their benefits, but yeah, we're gonna keep this mostly centered on the Dark Descent, and I think this is the second Algerian expedition note.
17th of May, 1839. My hands tremble as I write. I feel a need to document my tribulation, for I fear that my memory will fail me if I linger. Today, I took some men and ventured into the dark, ancient passage we uncovered. Our torches burned faintly in the murky air as we slowly made our way underground. The men were superstitious and fearful. They argued loudly, and I felt their strange language getting to me. I mustered my strength and yelled at them to continue down the slopes and broken steps. The crudely carved passage confused me. It looked much older than the 4th century structure we had expected. The twisting path emerged into a great antechamber. The walls were lined with statues unlike any I'd ever seen. Despite their unearthly quality, I felt a strange familiarity toward them, which haunts me still. At the far end of the chamber, a great slab of stone sealed off whatever lay ahead. I gave the order to raise it, and as I pushed through the narrow space, the heavy stone suddenly dropped, sealing me inside. I was trapped.
Yeah, like I said, doomed expedition, if you didn't already guess that. So I said earlier that the Dark Descent kicked off a renaissance of sorts. The reason that I think the Dark Descent is such a special, influential game is because it was the start of this survival horror renaissance, and it popularized a... Ooh, did you hear that? Monstrous voices calling out. Yeah, I love it. It popularized a style of survival horror that Frictional had already gotten really comfortable with in Penumbra, but it really didn't catch on until this game. It didn't blow up like that. And now you see it a lot everywhere. First person, no combat horror game. Oh, forgot about that. That startled me. Yeah, the wall over there collapsed, so we can no longer progress down that pathway.
May 1839. After pounding the unforgiving stone wall for what seemed like an eternity, I realized it was hopeless. I was trapped. I fell to the ground, gasping for air, trying to focus. That's when I saw a faint blue shimmer. My weakened body was heavy to carry, but I managed to push myself toward the enchanting light. It was waiting for me. Enclosed in dark nothingness, I felt myself drawn to the mystic light. I reached out, closing it in my hands. The faint glow escaped my fingers and began to spark brightly and spirit me away, unlocking alien memories of spiraling towers, endless deserts, and impossible geometry. The next thing I can remember is the grating sound of stone being lifted, the voices of the Arabs pulling me to safety, and grasped firmly in my hands was the broken pieces of a most peculiar relic.
Doomed Middle Eastern expedition, horrible nightmarish MacGuffin object. They even mention impossible geometry, like super on the nose. And then the Arab guides thing reminds me of Swami Chandraputra from Through the Gates of the Silver Key. Where am I going with this? Oh, it's the room behind me. Gonna throw this rock right through the wall. Oh, tears the whole section of wall down. What a piece of shit castle. Terrible, terrible state.
Much of the castle is old and hasn't been tended to for centuries. When the shadow arrives, it won't take long until things start falling apart.
We're just buying time anyway. Let's do what we can.
There isn't much to be done about the walls. We should reinforce weak structures. The ground will tremble and there's a risk everything will cave in on us, especially downstairs. Here, and there. Let's get the servants working on it.
One more quick note about Frictional's love of Lovecraft. They named the engine that the game runs on after him. The HPL engine. They even made a game like...
You have to be swift when you activate the first one. You hear that? If it stops, you'll have to start over.
Isn't all this a bit excessive?
You can never be too careful, Daniel.
Just setting up a little basic book-pulling puzzle. I was gonna say, they made a game like a decade ago called Fiend, which the story of it completely aped Shadow over Innsmouth. Okay, so we have 1, 2, and the third one's at the far end, which is right here. And that opened up that door, I think, over there. And we got some oil. Cool. But before I head over there, I smashed a glass case with a book because it contained a very lengthy note about Alstadt and Brennenburg Castle, 1801. Let's see what we have here. Another region rich with lore. Oh, right, local folklore. It's Alstadt, deep within Prussian woods. For centuries, there have been stories all the way back to the time of the 30 Years' War. Soldiers who abandoned their duty got lost in the woods, bodies disfigured, emptied of essence. They're called gatherers, and they seem to follow some ambition to steal living creatures. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa The well-known erudite visited Alsta at the start of the 16th century. One day he went to investigate a burrow to the northwestern glade, only to never be seen again. He's known to have passed away in Grenoble some 10 years later. And the Baron of Brennenburg is a recluse. Castle was consumed by a fire in the late 16th century. Rebuilt by Alexander, secretive about secretive about their lineage. Fed the idea that the Baron is the same one who came from the west over 300 years ago. Yeah. Okay, so the Baron of Castle Brennenburg, Alexander, appears to be some kind of immortal. And we also got our first mention of Agrippa. Fucking awesome name Agrippa is. And the only thing that we really learned about him is that he appears to have passed away in Grenoble at some point. Wilhelm and his fools have endangered my research long enough with their absent-minded handling of the human vessels. The sheriff is keeping a watchful eye on the forest and is killing my trusty servants. It's just a matter of time until they follow the trail to Brennenburg. I need to lock Wilhelm and his men up to avoid further investigation from the public. The wine cellar will therefore be sealed off until the matter has been handled. Either the king's men leave or they'll starve. Whatever comes first, they can rot for all I care. Okay, so that explains why the wine cellar's locked and... Ooh, something about human vessels. But I think, now that we have the wine cellar key, that's gonna do it for now. So, thanks for watching, everyone. Take it easy. Have a good one.